Welcome to Radical Self-Respect with Jared Mello. This is the place where I help people learn how to not take any BS, how to avoid being manipulated, and of course how to practice radical self-respect. Most people find my channel from a relationship they had with a narcissistic or a borderline person, and I help those kinds of people pick up the pieces and rebuild as a better, stronger version of themselves. So if that sounds like you, don't hesitate to reach out to me for some coaching. But that segues right into the video today, where I got an email from a subscriber who wanted my advice about a scenario he's in. So I'm going to read the email and we're going to go through it. So I'm a young man with a younger woman, and he's 20, she's 18. And she's been diagnosed with BPD, has pretty much every symptom, and they've been in a relationship for about 2 months. Now, there's a lot of stuff right in that first paragraph, right? So, he's only 20, she's 18. I would say most men shouldn't be focusing too much on a serious relationship at the age of 20. Work on your own life, work on your goals, become more established, and then when you're late 20s, early 30s-ish, mid-30s, that's when you'd want to focus on getting a serious relationship. That's when a man's at his prime, in my opinion, 30 to 35-ish. So get there first. But I'm going to go on with this video as if he's older, because there's still teaching points in here too. Now, he says that she's been diagnosed with BPD and she has every trait. And I would ask him, what do you mean every trait? Does she split on you? Is she abusive? Does she love bomb, devalue, discard? You got to explain what every trait means, because often, if it really is every trait, I often wouldn't say that it's a good thing to stick around. Now, we're going to get into the rest of it because it doesn't end there. So, I have maintained a very strong frame from the very beginning, and ever since she has been changing in some aspects to accommodate what I want her to be. She has started to pick up healthier habits and completely dropped every guy friend, as well as making her Instagram private and posting me frequently. So that paragraph was jam-packed too. So trying to control a woman will be a little more difficult when he says, I've been trying to get her to be the way he wants her to be. We can influence, but ultimately a person's going to be who they want to be. Now again, some people would say about the Instagram thing that that's controlling, but I would say if you're both on the same page about it and she willingly does it, I don't see a problem with that. I can understand why any man would think that way, because yeah, women do get a lot of inbox messages, etc. And they'll say, oh, what about trust, what about this? But it's like, hey, if a couple does something that works for them, it shouldn't be a problem for anybody else. So yeah, got rid of the guy friends. Yeah, I'd say that's a pretty good thing too. Guy friends have never helped the relationship last longer, we'll put it that way. So, she is going to psychotherapy. She doesn't know that she has BPD. Only her mother and I do. Her mother told me in private. The psychotherapist told her mother to not let her know about it, as she can potentially use it to manipulate. Now, I'm no clinical psychologist. I'm not a psychiatrist. I'm not a therapist, but I don't really agree with not letting someone know what their diagnosis is. I get it, they're younger, and they don't want it to be a negative, self-fulfilling prophecy, but I think a problem well stated is a problem half solved. Meaning, if we know what we're dealing with, we might be able to better help it and to come up with more solutions. But I get it, they don't want her to use it as a tool to manipulate, as he said, but I don't really agree with that course of action. So it makes me wonder how well she'll be able to work on her symptoms and work on what's going on when she doesn't even know what she's dealing with. But continuing. She adores me intensely, and I don't think she sees a life without me really. Even more as I have been modeling her, like I said previously. Now again, they're both young. Their frontal lobes in their brain aren't fully developed yet, so it might be a young love, which is understandable. I miss that kind of feeling, honestly, because as we get older, it kind of goes away. So on one hand, I'm a little envious of it. But on the other, I think, being 37, and I look back at it, a 20-year-old and an 18-year-old, I think, man, a lot of things can change, and you're both so young. So why dive down that road head first? But continuing, to not put too much detail here, in her past she has been abused sexually. After that, she slept with multiple guys in a time period relatively short, like a year and a half. She hadn't slept with anybody for about 7 months before meeting me. I mean, in this day and age, women are going to sleep with guys. That's something that guys are going to have to get used to. It's not going to be reality to find some sort of virgin bride anymore. That's just not going to be a reality. Now, I could see a woman slept with hundreds of dudes. That'll be a problem. But for the most part, they're going to have some bodies under them. That's just reality. So, I know the story sounds effed up from everywhere, and the immediate advice is get the hell out of there. But here's the thing. I feel bad for her. In her past, a lot of bad crap happened. Her family is poor. Her dad is essentially absent. Her brother is an ass. And her mother is working all day. So this is something that happens to guys, in particular with a BPD woman. They come off often as like innocent and in need of saving. And the save-a-hoe, for lack of a better word, and a guy comes out where they want to protect her, provide for her, save her. But here's the thing. No one can save another person unless that person wants to save themselves. I've said this before in the When to Stop Helping People video, but you can't help anyone that doesn't want to help themselves. And if they do want to help themselves, then you really got to make sure it's not hurting you, the fact that you're helping them. Remember the term enlightened self-interest? We can best help others when we help ourselves first. That is definitely true when it comes to a borderline woman in this regard, right? So that's something we got to be on guard for. And here's the thing also, and I mentioned this in my last video about BPD, I would say simply the diagnosis of BPD is a massive red flag. Now, I won't say completely no 100% of the time, because people do, as they get older, sometimes are able to address it, and they're able to work on the symptoms and do better. But I'm not going to act like that's the majority of the time. It's certainly not. So we got to see how it presents itself. And in the beginning of this, he said, every symptom. So that's a problem. But going on, she herself is a very sweet and cute girl. And even after all of that, she still smiles and is happy. And every time she's with me, writes me letters, hand makes me presents, bakes me cookies, and every other feminine way to add to my life one can think of. I know that it already is, quite a lot of work to quote-unquote fix or help her, but should really the entire universe give its back to her and abandon the innocent girl? She's putting in an effort, too, with the psychotherapy and getting into healthy habits and accepting me modeling her. I don't know, man, what would your advice be? So, again, as far as the BPD goes, if she doesn't even know she has the diagnosis, it makes me wonder how hard can she really be working on something that she doesn't know she has. So that's number one. And then I would also need to know what are the symptoms that she is presenting. She said all of them, and I would say that's a problem. Because here's the thing, whether it's a cluster B person, an addict, or just someone displaying toxic traits, the person has to learn how to respond rather than react. Because if all they can do is react, and they don't know how to take a step back, it's going to be a rocky road as a relationship. And especially since she's younger, it's going to be really difficult for her to get that under wraps. If anything, it's more likely to get a little worse than it is to be getting better, especially with someone at her age. It's just because you're young. You're young, and there's going to be some immaturity that comes with that. There's going to be a lack of self-awareness that often comes with that too. And even in the best of cases, with a BPD diagnosis, the person has to have really worked on it, takes complete ownership and responsibility of everything they do, of their splitting, of their behaviors, of their emotions, and they have to be willing to work on them all. And again, like I said, it's just not common that someone in that scenario is going to be good with all of those things all the time, especially when they're younger. I'm not going to say it's impossible, but it's certainly something that would give me pause. Now, as someone gets older, maybe, but for the very most part, it is rare. It's rare for someone to come out the other side completely, although not impossible. So I would say at the young age that you are, and then the young age that she is, with the BPD diagnosis, honestly, I would say work on your own life, do better in your own life, improve, get to where you want to be, become more established, and then around the age of 30-ish, then start looking for a serious relationship. Now, I get it, in different countries, there are different standards, but even so, guys tend to improve with age. They become more self-aware, they become better versions of themselves, and they don't have to worry about the youth factor like women do. So I get it. You might think that this is the best thing since sliced bread right now in your life. And you did mention the frame thing too. And it is always interesting when someone talks about frame, but then goes on to talk about his girl for 5 paragraphs. Now, is that someone that's in their own mental point of origin? Someone that's has strong frame? Or is that someone more than likely in the other person's frame, in her mental point of origin? When she talks about her, it makes me think that he might be in her frame a little bit, regardless of what he said. So those are my suggestions. Comment below what you think about this video. Do you agree, disagree? And I'd love to hear any of your suggestions out there if you didn't think that I touched on them all. So thank you very much for watching. Have a good one.